Hi there, and welcome to everybody watching the Wednesday warm-up. This is the first podcast of the new year for me, and I'm looking forward to getting into it, getting back the first one before competitive action as well. I've got two fantastic guests, as always. First of all, Kyran, it's nice to see you. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, mate. It's been a while, so I'm glad to be back. And yeah, I was going to say plenty to talk about, but we've not really, but I think we'll get right into everything that we do.
Yeah, that's it. It's the wonderful world of Rangers in the middle of January, so there's always plenty to be talking about, or not plenty to be talking about, as you said. But we'll see. And Ross, how are you getting on as well?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, mate. Thanks. You've really set this podcast up, babe, when you're talking about we've not got much to talk about. So yeah, there's always something with Rangers, isn't there, that you can dive into. So I'm sure we'll crack on with that.
No, listen, we both know Kyran had a big, massive rant in that chat today, so it's just a case of me winding him up and setting him off, and I don't think you and I will have to say too much for the rest of the podcast, Ross.
That's fine with me.
Wednesday night, this is therapy.
You're not joking, man. But listen,
the winter break's supposed to be for us as well, as in like a break mentally and emotionally from what Rangers actually do to you.
Nah, no, it's been anything but though. I just want the football back. That's all it is.
Yeah.
But look, what we are going to plan on talking about tonight is obviously competitive action returns. We'll have a wee look ahead towards the Dumbarton game at the end of the podcast. We'll get the guys' thoughts in the sort of winter break so far, what they've made of Rangers going over to La Manga, some of Clement's comments. We'll touch on that Copenhagen game. I feel there's quite a few natural talking points in from that game. You know, a couple of the goals, the goals we conceded, which was a bit of a nightmare, albeit a friendly. Some of the positions that some of the players are playing, and then we'll get to is our Rangers supporters right to be concerned at the lack of signings, and as the title says, will Nils Koppen and Rangers do something before the transfer window shuts? But before we get into the friendly last night, Kyran, I'll come to you first. I want to chat a bit about the winter break. Obviously, as I mentioned, Rangers went away over to La Manga. They had a team, camp for a week, played a friendly against Hertha Berlin over there. A couple of comments from the manager that I found quite interesting. He said that, the players have been having one-to-one chats from, I think it's 8 till 11 every evening when they were over there. And obviously he played that friendly with heavy legs, which is not something you hear a manager say. What have you made of the winter break so far up into the Copenhagen game?
I like it when the squad goes away and does these sort of the camps. I know the team had a week to spend with their family and recuperate before quite a heavy week in the legs. As far as I'm aware, it was double sessions, which quite heavy going, but when you look how grim it is outside and the players got to go away to a nicer climate and worked hard, it was good. But let's not forget that Clement's not had a pre-season with the guys, and he's not had that proper time away from match after training sessions where you're just preparing for games. It's the first proper time he's had like up close and personal with the squad on a basis where you've got a program together and you're working towards fitness and sharpness, and you can work on the things that haven't been so great. So it's almost like Clement's pre-season. So it's great to hear about the one-on-ones and lets the players get to know him a wee bit better, because let's not forget he only came in mid-October. So he's not really been here that long, although there's been a hell of a lot of games since then. So I'm all for it. He spoke very positively about how the players reacted to everything over there. So, yeah, all good.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with anything you've said there, Kyran. And Ross, what have you made of the winter break so far? I know that there's been a couple of years where I've had a bit of scar tissue whenever somebody mentions the word winter break, and it's scuppered a couple of title challenges. But this, I don't know, the manager, just the things he's saying, there's lots of wee details that I like, as we said, about those individual chats, and I've genuinely never ever heard a manager say something like that before about they've trained hard and he wanted them to go into a game with heavy legs and feeling a bit lethargic. What have you made of it so far?
Well, it explains why that game in La Manga against Hertha Berlin was so poor, because, my God, that was one of the worst games of football I've watched in a long time.
Yeah.
Not just being Rangers. So, yeah, I think something you said there about a little bit of scar tissue when it comes to winter breaks. I've certainly got that. I think we've heard over the last 2 or 3 years how important, it's going to be for Rangers coming back from these winter breaks to make an impact, and we haven't. So you won't really know how successful this break is until you start the competitive action again. I think we have 3 fixtures coming up until the end of January that are games that we should be winning every single time. And I think it is good for us to get back into the rhythm. Some of the comments about Philippe Clement in terms of when we've been away, like Kieran referenced there, the kind of one-to-one chats. I don't think it's ever a bad thing to sit down with your players and speak to them when you've got a wee bit of time. I know he's been trying to do that when he's just came in the door. A little bit of time away from games is great for this squad. I think this squad actually do get on well off the pitch. They do look like they have, good relationships between each other. So, Fabio Silva coming into that, he gets to go away with the squad for a week and he gets to gel in with everyone. That's great. It's just probably a wee bit unfortunate we've not had more signings in there to make the most of Manga.
I don't start them already.
I know. Overall, I think the winter break I think it will be looked at as a positive. I think Philippe Clement is looking at it that way based on the comments after Copenhagen last night. He spoke about, he asked the club to get him a really tough test. He wanted the players to be tested in this period. Yeah. And I think everyone watching that game last night, they were a good side, like a really good side. So Rangers held their own against them. And I think there's a lot of positivity moving into this second half of the season.
Yeah, no, that's it. You could see that before we get into Copenhagen, they were a good team. And what was I going to say? It was about that Hertha Berlin match. There was something on Twitter that made me laugh. It was somebody said, even though this game is free on YouTube, I still feel like I've paid too much to watch it, which I thought was absolutely brilliant. But yeah, it was maybe it was a bit of context from Clement putting it into it because that was not an enjoyable game of football to watch. But yeah, I just feel that there is time will tell, I suppose, with the winter break and if it has been successful in a worthwhile endeavour. But just all the noises, vibe coming out of the camp, it just all seems positive. Everybody seems together, and it's good to see. But look, Kieran, I'll come to you on the next point here. There was some brave souls that went out into the Arctic tundra last night, and I think it was my phone was telling me it was -2, -3, but it felt like -8 degrees, which fair play to you. If you went to that game, you should be awarded a sticker or some sort of medal for it. But the game finished 2-2 with Matondo and Dessers with 2 fairly decent goals. What was your overall thoughts on that game last night, Kieran?
Good to see Rangers playing football, put it that way. In terms of quality,
that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, I think you said it in the chat last night, Ross, at half time. Silva looks good, and nothing much more to talk about. That's about it. Not a good exercise to see guys getting a run out. Let's look at the positives, right? We're missing Sima. Matondo's come back in. We've been craving a wee bit of Matondo since we've seen flashes of good stuff before his injury. He's come in and he's scored a great goal. Ridvan with the assist. We don't know if this could possibly be his last game. I know we're going to go on to that. But in terms of the team, good to see Raskin back as well. He was maybe not his greatest game, but he's going to need a bit of match sharpness and as well. Tom Lawrence, good to see him back again. Are we going to get a run of games from him? I don't know. But in terms of the forward line, we are still extremely lacking. We will go further into this and we'll deep dive, but we're lacking. But I thought Silva looked good, but I don't think he looks like a goal scorer. He looks like the sort of guy that's going to drop in, try and pull defenders into that hole behind midfield where they don't really want to go and try and get turning and running. He looks a real exciting prospect. Not for us, of course, because he's only on loan, but yeah, I think there was positives to take, although horrible night. One thing that I just didn't like, though, away from the playing side, bringing Brian Laudrup out to a crowd like that. I mean, come on. There's been an oversight there. God deserves better.
Yeah, I know. See, to be honest, when I asked you about that Copenhagen game, I was expecting the next 30 minutes to just be Brian Laudrup chat.
Oh, God.
I know. I think it might have been yourself, Kieran, that put in the chat last night that it's incredible how he manages to look younger than every single person within the podcast.
I know.
But yeah, I agree with you. When you're bringing a player of Brian Laudrup's caliber, stature out, all the medals, trophies he's won for the club, yeah, maybe a slightly bigger capacity crowd would have been better for that one. But Ross, I know you love talking about all the positive points in this, and I know that you and I were messaging yesterday when it happened. But the 2 goals yesterday, again, totally get it was a friendly, but it was so bizarre watching 2 goals, one after another, back to back, that were virtually identical. Set pieces, what did you make of those 2 goals we conceded last night?
Yeah, I mean, it's not great considering I think that's obviously 3 set pieces with a goal in La Manga against Hertha Berlin as well. So it's something I think a lot of the Rangers support feel that we need to work on. I think that's both sides. I think it's defensively and in offense that we need to get better at set pieces. I'll be honest with you, right? I don't really take a lot from friendlies. That's just the way I am. I don't really look into them too much. I kind of look at it more of, it's about maybe players building relationships between each other, finding fitness, really just avoiding injuries. I think it looked like that in both games where players just weren't really going full pelt. So I'm not going to go over the top and be too critical of the team here that they conceded 2 set piece goals. I believe that the goals, both of them came once we'd made the 8 changes we'd made last night when we conceded the 2 goals. So, I mean, that will have an impact on how you set up defensively from a set piece. And I think Clement referenced that in his post-match when he was talking about Ufeko and, people coming into the side. That's going to take them time to learn where they need to be in these situations. So I'm not going to look too much into it, to be honest with you, Keller. I could come on here and rant about it, but I'm not going to. Anything else from the friendly? I think good finishes from Cyril Dessers and Ridvan Matondo. I still need to see a little bit more from Ridvan Matondo. He just does not convince me at all as a player. Not taking anything away from him last night. It's a fantastic run and it's a really, really good finish. Shows a lot of composure, which is what we've been looking for in our players. I just think for a player in that position, he just doesn't do enough for me. When he's got an opportunity to drive at his man, he doesn't really take it. And with that pace, I think I would be doing it every single time I get the ball. So a couple of things in there. But yeah, I think Kieran referenced it earlier. You might have mentioned that, Fabio Silva, I thought he looked good last night. I honestly did. I thought he's probably right. He's probably not that kind of number 9 that's going to hover around the 18-yard box and grab you lots of goals. But I actually thought his link-up play between him and Campbell was actually really good and quite encouraging. And I think it's something we actually lack in our front line, that ability to kind of play intricate passes between each other on the edge of a box. Think how many games you play in the SPFL where teams are camped on the edge of your box. You need a wee bit of creativity. You need someone to be able to play with their back to goal. And actually, I think I've seen quite a lot from Fabio Silva that he can do that. And I think that's why Clement's going to play him as a number 9. He might sacrifice it. Okay, he's maybe not going to score me as many goals, but I'm hoping that others will be able to chip in with goals with his input in terms of, off the ball movement and dropping into space. So I was really encouraged by him. Overall, as a team, like I said before, I can't tell you too much from my friendly. We actually sat and watched the Hertha Berlin game together, and you know what I'm like. Now you've been in my company watching a friendly. I'm not. It's just it is what it is. I just can't wait for the competitive stuff to come back, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say, Ross, I was taking that friendly far more seriously than what you were at that time, but it's fair enough. So Ross touches on a couple of points there. Kieran, obviously about Fabio Silva. The other point I wanted to take up as well is Ridvan Matondo. I felt, especially in the last cut, again, I know they've been friendlies, I'll keep adding that in, but I have felt there's been a big hole in the side of that pitch and it's been Sima sized. Do you think that Ridvan Matondo is going to be the guy, like not to step up, but is he going to be good enough to fill that void when Sima is gone? Because we've really been missing something on that left side, I felt.
Well, it's going to be him or Scott Wright, isn't it? I know Scott Wright's best games in a Rangers jersey have come on the right-hand side, but he's just going to have to be. And in terms of Sima playing out there, that's not really Sima's position, isn't it? I know that he's done well there and it's worked out well, and we've began to learn how he plays there with the through balls, with him coming in off the left and bending that run in behind a centre-back. But in terms of Matondo, that's where he needs to progress to. He needs to up his game into making the clever runs, adding goals to the game. And like Ross says, getting at guys, making them sort of make mistakes. And I hate to mention him, but one of me and Ross's heroes, Ryan Kent, used to do it every week. He'd go and take on men and make them commit fouls and win penalties. And that's what we need to see from Matondo. He's got the chance to play there now. He's got the opportunity while Sima's at the AFCON, so maybe time to step up for Matondo. He looked good in flashes before that injury. I still stand by, he's only had a handful of good games for Rangers since he signed, which isn't good enough. It needs to be better, and it's time he stepped up. If we're going to go on and win a league, there's a lot of players in that first team need to step up and show proper form and show that they're worth their heavy wage and they're worth their heavy transfer fee in the case for some of them. So if we're going to have a big second half of the season and everybody's talking about competing for the league and completely forgetting about we've got a last 16 of the Europa League and the Scottish Cup to compete for, we're going to need guys to really step up, because although we've done good to get where we are just now, there's still a long, long way to go and a lot of guys that need to start producing. Matondo being one of them.
Yeah, 100%. I think, as you said, there was flashes last night where he was good. I think just before he did score his chance, he absolutely he duffed a good opportunity. But I think that's the Matondo that we see. What I feel like I say this about a lot of players in the Rangers squad. See if you're not actually giving them time to think about stuff. Like, it was so natural. I was quite impressed by that goal that he scored last night. Yilmaz winning the ball high up the pitch, which you don't see that often with a tackle, and then just taking it on and coasting, and the players just step back from him. I'll stick with you, Kieran, as well. There's a wee comment coming in here from RFC72. I know Ross touched on it a wee bit. He said, we've not got the goal-scoring wingers/midfielders right now to allow Silva to drop in all the time. We need a proper number 9. Do you think that that's who we're going to see Fabio Silva going forward? I mean, I think it's a bit ominous for Dessers, given that the last 2 games, he scored a fantastic goal last night, a composed finish, which took me aback. Normally he's snatching, sclaffing at stuff. But do you think that we are going to see Silva in that number 9 role? Because when the chat was about him coming on and signing for Rangers, he's a wide player that comes in. I'm just a bit surprised that he's now the focal point of our attack.
I think it's a case with Silva Clement using what he's got there, and RFC 72 is right in saying that we do need a number 9. We need a goal scorer, and I think everyone's unanimously in agreement with that we don't need a guy that comes in short or tries to link up the play or is involved in the build-up. We need a guy that hangs about the 6-yard box and taps the ball in the net. You look at the games that have been pretty close for us this year, the Old Firm game we lost, Hearts away, just 2 that jumped to mind, where there's so many just tap-ins there that a bit of composure of a goal scorer, someone with a real striking instinct would score. And we all know the name that everybody's thinking about, and it's Shankland. Silva's game isn't going to be hanging about a 6-yard box or the 18-yard box. You've seen him, he likes to spin a defender and run at folk with the ball. He's great technical ability with the ball at his feet, and he's very, very strong. And we've not seen enough of him to know exactly the player he's going to be, but I can see why it's said that he's a winger, if you know what I mean. He can play on the wing, put it more that way. But yeah, we're crying out for Lawrence Shankland right now. It's never ever been so obvious. So I think someone said in the chat, it's almost like the time we signed Billy Dodds, like he wasn't going to play in Europe, but he was a poacher in the league and he was enough to help us over the line. Look at guys of years gone past as well. Boyd, Rod Wallace. These guys banged the goals in. Did they ever play outside the 18-yard box? I hardly remember them scoring from outside there, aside from Boyd, of course. But
yeah,
we're crying out for a player like that now. I hate to say it, but the difference in both Old Firm games this season has been the poacher, and it's been Kyogo. We're crying out for a striker like that, a number 9 that could hardly touch the ball in the game that can knock it in the net. Saying that, we sold Cholak, didn't we?
Yeah, let's
in this Clement team. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, that's it. No, I totally agree. It's the irony of us letting him go when I think that he is the exact type of profile player that would fit right into the team. But Ross, I'll come to you in the next point. Maybe the sort of last talking point from the friendly overall last night, but it was just the amount of players that were returning from injury. How pleased are you from that? I mean, we've had a few long-term injuries out, but Lawrence played, Jack played. I know Raskin featured in that Kilmarnock game just before we stopped for the winter break, and I'll chuck in this name there just to get a few heckles up. But it's Borna Barisic came back as well last night. Pleased? You think that the season? I mean, it's a bit of an obvious question. Saying, do you think the season will be better? But I mean, just maybe there's a good feel to the squad now with so many people come back. I was really impressed by the sort of cameo performances of Ryan Jack. I think, I don't know, just barrel-chested, had the armband on, just looked to have a wee bit about him last night, looked to have a bit of confidence under Clement. And I'll say the same thing about Tom Lawrence. I think Tom Lawrence is a player that Clement really, really rates, really likes.
Yeah, I think all three of those players are actually really important for Rangers. I think there's a lot of debate over Borna Barisic in terms of where he's going to be after this season, and I know there's a lot of things that can be labelled at him in the past, but ultimately he is the first choice left back until we see any difference. You know, Ridvan has been available for quite a lot of the time under Clement, and he's went for Borna Barisic usually, so it's good to have him back. Ryan Jack is. It's a really, really frustrating one for me because he comes on for 11 minutes for Scotland and then you don't see him for 2 months. Like that's really difficult to accept, and it's a pattern, isn't it? It's not saying that it's clearly he's not being treated the same way at Scotland that he is for Rangers. Now that's not saying they're doing anything drastically like negative or anything like that. It's just obviously there's something going wrong there when he goes to Scotland in terms of looking for injuries. Tom Lawrence as well is a massive one for me because I think he's probably someone you could play on the left actually to facilitate Sima being away at AFCON. Someone that's really, really dangerous when he's in possession, but also can get you a goal, you know, and we've seen he's willing to take shots from different angles, which is something we don't really have in that area as well. So I'm really encouraged to see them all back. They're all obviously very good players. I thought what was interesting last night was I think you're right to talk about Raskin. I don't think he had a really great game last night. Again, it's a friendly. I'm not going to take anything from it. But what I thought was interesting when Ryan Jack came on was you could see his experience of playing in there. Like Rangers started to get a wee bit more of control of the game at that point, and he wasn't really doing anything drastic. It was just someone getting his foot on the ball, understanding when he needs to switch play. A lot of things that I've always really liked about Ryan Jack. It's just unfortunate you just can't keep him fit. So It's going to be one of those ones again where you're going to see how much he can play until the end of the season to see whether he gets a contract. I'm sure most Rangers fans at this point would say he shouldn't get one, and I probably agree with them at this stage, but I think it will come down to can he stay fit for the rest of the season, because if he can, he still is an important player when he's here. We can argue whether he's going to be here for the long term, but when Ryan Jack is here and he's fit, he's probably destined to play most of the games. So yeah, really good to see them all back. I'm sure Clement will be happy about that because I think he's absolutely sick of talking about injuries in all these press conferences. I know he was talking about it last night as well. And it's probably just worth saying, Kieran Dowell, again, really disappointing because I thought the last few games there at Christmas, I thought he was actually really good in that central midfield role. Even when he came on at Parkhead, he made a bit of a difference. He brought a bit of energy.
Yep,
and
indeed.
I thought he was really good against Kilmarnock at home as well, just willing to take a wee bit of risk in possession. And if he lost it, he was the first one to get after it. So I'm disappointed for him. Should we have expected it by now? Probably, because he's came up here with quite a few injuries. But yeah, I'm a bit gutted for him because it looked like he was starting to get his Rangers career going. But unfortunately, the way it is, if you're playing for Rangers, you're going to get injured at some point.
There's a question for you, Ross, and you can chip in here as well, Kieran. See if Ryan Jack came out and publicly said that he was no longer part of the Scottish national team, would you be more inclined to offer him a new deal, given that, as you said, it always seems to play for about 5 minutes for Scotland and he's out for about 3 months?
I think it would certainly go towards that way for me. I think I would be more willing to negotiate a contract with Ryan Jack if he was willing to step away from Scotland. I think Ryan Jack will step away from Scotland after this summer, after the Euros are complete. I think he will retire from international duty. It might be too late though, because Rangers have looked at this for the last couple of years and probably wanted him to step away before now, and he's not been willing to. It's not a criticism. You know, he wants to play for his country. Good on him. That's exactly what you want from all the players in our squad. You want them to strive to be playing for their nations. So I can't have a go at them for it. But I think from Rangers' perspective, they probably look at it and go, well, we just can't seem to get you fit long enough. So really, can we take back those wages and give it to someone else that, you know, is going to have more availability? So it's certainly going to come into the conversation. I think Philippe Clement has actually referenced that, being really honest and saying that is something we'll speak to Ryan Jack about. So it will be an interesting summer to see, one, whether he steps away from international duty, and two, whether he gets another contract.
Yeah, that is it. CGM55 here says Lundstram and Sterling as a pair has looked good, but Jack as a player who makes everyone else better around him. And I was actually going to say, I think I can hear John Walker shouting Connor Barron all the way from from wherever he is. I think he's an ideal replacement for Ryan Jack. Right, Kieran, it is, I think, the part of the show that you've been looking forward to the most. Is the January transfer window. It would be remiss of me not to talk about transfer or lack of. There has been lots of speculation so far with Rangers in the transfer window. A few players I'm going to go over: Emmanuel Dennis, Lawrence Shankland, Josh Doig, Stephen Alatse, Jurasek, and Marko Balut from Dinamo Zagreb. They've all been linked. The manager said last night in his press conference, and I thought this was very interesting, a few things were close but not done. What did you make of the manager's comments so far, and what have you made of the transfer window up until this point?
It's good to hear him being a wee bit positive about it. It kind of reassured me slightly, but it's still extremely frustrating. I mean, it might be, 2 weeks until the transfer window shuts or around then, but it's a week away from what is our biggest game of the season so far against Hibs. We need to win that game, and we're looking very, very thin up front. The fact that there's been no noise around the Shankland situation is very, very frustrating, and it's annoying, and it's become very, very tiresome talking about Redvan Yilmaz's move. And the fact that before this window we said, who do we need? Right, we need a centre mid, we need a winger, and we need a striker. We've brought in a striker on loan, and that was in December, so we've done nothing in January. In terms of the Redvan Yilmaz situation, it's very, very strange to me, everything you're hearing about it, but it very much sounds like we need the funds from Yilmaz in which to go and sign somebody else. To me, it does sound like, or I hope that they would use the funds to sign Shankland. From what I've heard is that we've been completely priced out the deal, so I don't know if we're priced out the deal with what we're offering just now, or we would be priced out with what we could offer going forward, but it's just extremely frustrating with how important that game is against Hibs, that if this board have got any intention of us winning the league and going on, then why haven't we really pushed the boat out already, got the players in before La Manga, got them settled into the team, and went and been properly prepared for Hibs? And we talk about Shankland, and I know some people aren't really on the boat about it, but he's the safest bet at the moment in terms of he's scoring in the league, he's on form, he's a Rangers fan. I know it doesn't go for too much, but he knows what it's about. He's at peak age, and yeah, I just can't believe that we've not got it done yet. Everybody said, he's so important to Hearts' European quests. Like, how's he not important to our European quests? If we win this league, we're in the Champions League, so how's that not important to us? It really, really frustrates me the way we've gone. And the man you mentioned as well, Kyle, Connor Barron, exactly the profile and the type of transfer that we should be going for. On a free, we've got an aging Ryan Jack, whether he plays for Scotland or not, again, I don't think it really matters. It doesn't sound like his body can cope with the demand of 2 games a week. So for me, we really need to freshen up in there. A young player like Connor Barron would really, really sort of bring a bit of life to that midfield. It might not start every week, but he's 21, he's got unbelievable stats, and it completely fits the profile for there. So we could be here all night if we want to talk about the state of the squad and players going out on running their contract out in terms of Barisic. Barisic should have been sold in the summer if he wasn't signing a new contract. And we said this seasons ago, it happened with Aribo, it happened with Morelos, it happened with Kent. It's going to happen with Jack. It's going to happen with other players in that team that maybe not Roof. There's no way you could load him off. But we're in a terrible state just now when it comes to the transfer market. And it is a huge, huge 2 weeks ahead if the board have really got any intentions of backing the best manager that we've had in the past, well, since Gerrard, and giving him a real chance of doing something in Europe, but going and winning the league. There's a real chance that it'll go on and do something. Time will tell.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you there. It's It's a difficult one, given the. I mean, we've not had the sound bites from Beale, but like you said, I was certainly expecting when Silva signed. I thought, right, here we go. Rangers have obviously done their business early. Having been in the presence of Clement and the way he speaks, the way he conducts himself, you just think this is a guy that's really got his eye on everything and knows what he wants. And yeah, it's just been a bit disappointing that we've not even signed anybody permanently yet. It's been a loan. I think Fabio Silva will turn out to be a good signing. There was a wee comment here, 56 incoming. Love that name, by the way. He says Champions League format change next year and it's a lot more money. It's absolutely crucial that we win the league. And another wee one here, totally unrelated. It was our very own JB. He says, tuning in from Tenerife. To be fair, JB's about 50% of the time he's tuning into a pod is in Tenerife anyway. So, hope you're having a good time over there and the friendlies didn't ruin your holiday too much. But look, Ross, I'm going to ask you the exact same question as I've asked Kieran there. There has been a lot of heat, a lot of frustrated Rangers supporters on social media. Talking about this real concern that we haven't. I don't want to say it's panic because it's not quite gone, sharks and barriers quite yet. But it's there's definitely a murmurings of discontent that we were expecting something here. I'll maybe get on to areas where people think that players should be signed. But I mean, as Kieran touched on, it's pretty glaringly obvious. Like, we need a goal scorer. Are you concerned by the lack of activity so far?
I'm going to really struggle here to, come after Kieran here because that was a really passionate answer to that. I'll be honest with you, I'm actually not that concerned at the moment. It's the 17th of January. I've seen this before with the January transfer window. I read a really good, I think it was a tweet today, and I can't remember who it was. So if someone's in the chat and it's them, and I'm not calling them out, but I think someone had looked at the past 4 transfer windows for Rangers in January, and they'd signed 2 players in the last 4 days of the window each time. So it's normal. I think the Rangers will do their business a wee bit later in the window, and I don't think that's always down to Rangers. I just think there's obviously 3 parties involved in any deal. There's the selling club, there's a buying club, and then there's a player and their agent. So I think it's just really, really difficult month to get stuff done. I don't disagree with all the reasons that Kieran's put forward in terms of what we need and what we should be doing and what we need to potentially buy to be in a title race. I completely agree. And if you ask me this question in a week when we're closer to the deadline, I might give you a different answer. But right now, I'm not that concerned. I don't think it's the time yet to get too bothered about it. I think the club have still got a wee bit of time to do things. Ultimately, I still think we have the squad to get through this month. So if you were to bring in a couple of guys at the end of the window that pushes on for the rest of the season, I would probably take that. Of course, it is just really important where we do our deals. I think I've just read there that David Jurasek is actually off to Hoffenheim, so he won't be coming in now. I think they've agreed a loan with a 10 million buy option. Again, it shows you how difficult this market is because we can't compete. We can't compete in that market. So I'm sure that Rangers will have identified a lot of targets, but it's just waiting to see where players move and when they can jump in. And Kieran's right to bring it up. I think Ridvan is really important here for Rangers transfer window. They've clearly, I think the club and the player have identified that probably his long-term future isn't here. He's not going to reach his potential at Rangers, and all sides have agreed on that. And I think Rangers have clearly looked at that and went, right, well, we can get a pretty good fee for him and this can let us move things around. And I think that's what they're trying to do, but they're just waiting for the right deal to come along. Also, they need to have someone coming in because we only have Borna Barisic after that, really. People say Adam Devine or Dujon Sterling. I wouldn't be confident playing the rest of the season with those two at left back if Borna Barisic get injured. So I think there's a lot of stuff still to be done. I'm sure we'll come on to it. We'll probably talk about him in particular. Lawrence Shankland, I'm sure that would be a fantastic player for us to bring in. I'm just not sure it's one that we're going to be able to do this January. So I'm hoping that Rangers will be able to bring in a couple of adequate loans to see us through. I've always thought that's the way it's going to be. I didn't think it was going to be permanent signings, to be honest with you. But yeah, Kyle, ask me in a week. You may get a different answer to that. I've maybe been a wee bit too calm there. Kieran's taking the passionate response. I'll try and be a bit cooler about it.
Just on your point now, Ross, you make a good point about 2 players being signed in the last 4 days of the transfer window. does it not make it even more important this window, given that we are in the last 16 of the Europa League and we are in the running for a league, that we should be getting business done early? Like, I get that we've done all right last transfer window. It's probably one of our best in a long time, but we need another window like that this year. But in terms of, you talk about the boy Jurasek, in terms of world transfers, there's no real transfers been done. It's all loan signings, isn't it? It's a strange time for football. I think there's a bigger question that we could make another whole podcast about how football could change by abolishing the January transfer window and coming up with something fresh and new that encourages teams to sort of push the boat out a bit more. But that's not for me to cover.
It's always a domino effect, January, isn't it? It's always a domino effect. You're waiting for one to fall, really, and I think that's the way it is. I mean, Clement spoke about it in his presser last night, and he was saying, we've got a lot of things sitting there, but it's not done. The things are close, and I think that ultimately shows that Rangers have probably lined up quite a lot of deals, both going out and coming in, but you're just waiting for someone has to set that off for everything to fall into place, and clearly that's not happening yet. And like we've said, there's not a lot of money floating about this January. Like, even Premier League clubs aren't really spending a lot, and I think there's quite a few of them under FFP investigation at the moment, so that probably shows you why. But there's not a lot flying around. The fact that Rangers were able to get Fabio Silva in early, I think that comes down to the player. I think Fabio Silva just wanted a move straight away. He just wanted to play football, so that's fair. And if that is the case, sometimes it goes a bit quicker. But it's just transfers. Honestly, it's got so much more complicated as the years have went on. That there's so many different factors involved in it now.
No, that's it exactly. Look, the chat is kind of, oddly enough, agreeing with the pair of you, which doesn't happen very often.
That's so rare.
I know the Bluebells are blue, one of our very own YouTube subscribers. He says the window has been quiet across Europe. It seems most clubs are struggling to get deals done, and it's not even that. I just wanted to sign Jurasek just because, to live up to the heights of a Czech player that's previously played for Rangers and Libor Sionko, and see if he could reach the dizzy heights of him as well. But look, Kyran, I'll come to you because it's the big, I was going to say the big left-back shaped shadow that's leaning over us, but to call this player a big player is Redvan Yilmaz. It's everybody's talking about it in the chat, so I think we need to discuss it. RFC 72 here saying we should keep Ridvan for 6 months and prove his value rather than sell in the summer. Sharpie staunch here, Ridvan is just starting to play as well. Ian Dill says, I would sacrifice Ridvan to get the money for Shankland. And our very own Kendall Matthews just says, I would sacrifice Ridvan. Oh, that's made me laugh, Kendall. But yes, he seems to be the key to all this. Do you think that once he goes and because he's a young player, he was the guy, I remember Patrick Caskey when he was part of this as Ibrox. He was delighted when we signed him. Couldn't believe it. I think I was actually on a podcast with him when he says, I genuinely think it's a massive coup for Van Bronckhorst, the fact that we've managed to bring in a player of this caliber in. But standard Rangers, he's come here, not been the best, not been the worst, been a wee bit injury prone. But do you think that if he goes for £4 million or something, that it's just going to trigger it and that'll bring some players, some loan deals in type thing?
Yeah, you've got to think that, and you've got to see sort of the irony in that when we signed Redvan Yilmaz, we were completely screaming out for a striker at that time as well, and we already had an international left back playing week in and week out, and he came in. But I'm glad some of the comments said that he started to play well. Have we completely forgot that this guy hasn't strung together 4 consecutive games without being injured or out for lengthy periods of time? We need to move away from guys like that. It's unfortunate, like I said earlier, Barisic is going to go on a free, an international left back with bags of experience in Europe, just walking away for free after we picked him up. A good bit of business for Barisic, so we should be looking for something in their terms. For me, the signing of Redvan Yilmaz just hasn't worked out at all. Physically, I don't think he's been great enough. I don't think we talk about the 3 different managers that have come in and not one of them have fancied him really. So it is very short-term memory in terms of people saying, we shouldn't be selling him, he's playing well. It goes for nothing for me. It's been a bit of a failed signing. He seems a good teammate, he seems a decent enough guy, but in terms of Rangers and moving forward, I think they are right to say, right, we've got Barisic coming back. for that position. We'll probably get a serviceable loan deal for a left back, and we'll use the money to reinvest in. Well, it's going to be Shankland. I can't see us spending money on anybody else that's not named Lawrence Shankland. I know that I think I read the other day that Hearts have offered him a lucrative deal around about 16,000 a week. You have to believe that, which is crazy money from Hearts. But again, though, you've got to think about the timing of them offering them that. Why have they offered them it 2 weeks before the transfer window shuts? If he's going to turn around and say, here, I'm not taking 16 grand a week, then they're going to be saying, right, well, that's a lot of money for us. You're going to get sold and we're going to reinvest the cash. Now, I think if Rangers are to come up with that deal, if we get the money for Yilmaz and can come up with that, a constructive sort of transfer, I think JB touched on it in our chat, saying that if they weren't to progress and get into that, would it be the Europa League or the Conference League they would get for third? When it's in guaranteed conference.
Guaranteed Conference League.
To get what they would get for that, then could we pay that having signed Shankland? I think something around that would have to be a wee bit of a crafty deal. But it could, like Ross says, could certainly make for a good end to the transfer window. I would have liked it to been a bit sooner, but 100% guarantee Redvan Yilmaz will create the domino effect once he goes. I can't see him being here by the end of the transfer window.
And that's it. And Ross, promise you, last question about Ridvan Yilmaz, other than does he start on at the weekend? But there's a couple of points here. Bluebells or Blues says before the Euros, he says selling Yilmaz is short-minded, and this is something that I never thought of. And RFC 72 says if we play Yilmaz this summer, he plays for Turkey in the Euros, and his value skyrockets as well. What do you think about that argument in terms of keeping a hold of him? Or what's more important, keeping Yilmaz for a bit, hoping he plays well and gets put in the short window, or bringing a certain Lawrence Shankland in? And just to tell you where my head is on this, see, when I saw the team lineup yesterday, I saw Lawrence on the bench and I just assumed it was Lawrence Shankland. That's where my head went. So he's already signed for us as far as I'm concerned. Ross, what was your thoughts on Yilmaz there?
This is a tough one because I actually really like Redvan Yilmaz, and I agree a lot with what Kieran said there in terms of he's not been able to put a run together, and I think that's completely fair. And I can understand why a lot of people would want to, when the money's there, sell him, and I think that's fair as well. I agree with that. I just think that we've seen that once he's had a run of games in this team, he's a good player, like genuinely, and I think if you did keep hold of him, then I can't see his market value decreasing. I think the thing that comes into it is Redvan Yilmaz wants to play football week in, week out because of international football. He wants to guarantee his place in that squad. So I think it's probably more the player side that's pushing for an exit here, but Rangers will try and ensure they get a fee. Again, I sound really negative on this one, and I apologise for it. I just cannot see a Lawrence Shankland deal happening. I just can't. I just don't think... The way I look at it, I think I spoke about this in the chat. Actually, I think me and you, Kieran, maybe spoke about this earlier on in the week. Hearts will value Lawrence Shankland higher than we do. Yeah, and that is unfortunately why a transfer I don't think will happen. I think Hearts will value Lawrence Shankland at 4 or 5 million. And I don't think he's worth that with 18 months left in his contract. And I don't think Rangers will think he's worth that either. So do you try and... I understand the argument here. There's a title to win and he could be one of the pieces that guarantees that. I totally get it. But the club have got to look at it from a business point of view, a financial point of view as well. And I'm just... Do they maybe try and get to the summer where Lawrence Shankland only has 1 year left and then you try and buy him? I don't know. It is a tough one. I think Shankland's a really good player. Yeah, and I think he would definitely slot into our side, and I think he would definitely score goals. It's just the money. I think that's all it is. It's just the financial package you would have to put together. I'm just not convinced that Rangers will see that as value, but especially when he only has 18 months left. It's such a tricky one. I think if you look at it and say, okay, you sell Ridvan for 3.5, 4 million, right? Would we be happy? This is a question to both of you. Would you be happy if Rangers just went and put that whole lot into Lawrence Shankland? And do you think that would be possible to make a deal?
100%. I think the vast majority of any transfer kitty or budget should be spent on your forward line and your strikers. Think back to Jokica Jelavic. Walter Smith came out that summer and said, our transfer budget is going on Nikita Jelavic, and we won a double that year. It was like, it really was. And that's
It's
any big team that wins things has got a striker that scores goals. Rangers don't have a striker that scores goals, and it's pure and simple as that at the moment. And I know what you say, Ross, we would have a better chance of signing him in the summer, but surely the horse is bolted by that point. What if we gift wrap them another league and another huge Champions League kitty? Surely just now, I was going to say roll the dice, but we shouldn't be rolling the dice at Rangers. But if we do get that transfer fee, and I think that's what probably hinders the Yilmaz deal, are we holding out for money up front so that we can go and say, here's money for you, Hearts. You don't have to worry about getting into Europe. You might still get into Europe and top up what we're going to give you, but we want Lawrence Shankland, and I think that's pretty much what we're looking at the moment.
Yeah, no, they're all fair points. It's a tough one. I can see both sides of it. I think that is the only thing that makes me doubt the deal. It's just the finances involved. In terms of the player itself, what he would bring to Rangers makes complete sense. Like, he would play week in, week out for us right now, especially with the shortage we have in that area. I think it's just... I think I've seen a couple of comments there, people saying very similar. Hearts are going to want a silly fee. They're just... And by the way, it's not a criticism of Hearts. They're well entitled to do that. I would want Rangers to do exactly the same thing. I just don't know. Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly. I just don't know. I can't see Rangers looking at a Lawrence Shankland and going, he's worth 4 or 5 million. We can debate forever whether we think it's value, and that's completely fair. But I just don't think the club will see it as value when he has 18 months left and he plays in Scotland. I can't see it.
That's it. It's difficult, as you said. It's I don't know. It's the guy we need. You can't blame Hearts for asking for that amount of money. I've seen some creative solutions in the chat anyway, but Sharpie Staunch here says, we buy Shankland, we win the league, and that's the Champions League money in the bag. As I said, there's quite a few creative transfer solutions that people seem to be offering. It's something I've not seen in a long time, but, you know, a player going for a bit of cash and another player. Hugo Bayer here says we could offer Hearts Suter, Wright and cash, which maybe not John Suter, but I would certainly be fine with Scott Wright going out in the club. CGM55 says I would offer Hart, Adam Devine, Leon King and loan as part of the deal. And RFC 72 says Scott Wright and 2-3 million for Shankland would be ideal as well. And the final one, Ian Dill here says sell everyone except Butland, just get Shankland in. But then you'd need to clone Dujon Sterling like another 9-10 times. And then I would maybe go with that. But look, I think that just about wraps the transfer news up for tonight. I think we could be here for another few hours just talking about Lawrence Shankland just in particular. And he's not even a Rangers player. But look, let's move on to the competitive action of the weekend. Kieran, Rangers are taking on Dumbarton in the 4th round of the Scottish Cup. It's a place that some players, I'm assuming, will be on the bench, and Ross McCausland know pretty well. How important is the Scottish Cup? Is that a trophy that we must win? And what are you expecting tomorrow? Or what are you expecting the weekend, I should say? God, I'm a day ahead of myself, or a couple of days ahead of myself. I'm on the weekend already.
I'll be honest, I don't even know what day it is the way my life is at the moment. So all I know is I'm back to work tomorrow. So I don't know. It's in terms of Scottish Cup, this is a cup we should be winning. Every year it should be a name that we go and win the League Cup and the Scottish Cup. Bare minimal. I know the league's always a big target, but in terms of cups that we play in, we should strive to win every single one of them. So this is where it starts at games like this. In terms of the game itself, I'm just hoping and praying that it's actually on. Going by the weather outside and how cold it is, like severely cold, that it should die off by Saturday, which is good. But I really just hope it goes ahead, because we've already got Hibs and Ross County in the back burner ready to play. So another one called off would be hellish. But in terms of the game itself, probably a good one again to kind of shake off the cobwebs with the legs that have been La Manga, the heavy legs, and get some of our injured players a good run out, but not too risky, if you know what I mean. If it's too cold and the part's not great, which I don't expect it to be. I remember seeing a lot of complaints when the B team played their home games there about how bad a pitch it actually is. So probably a good one to get guys game time. And again, the first leg of of hopefully going on a successful Scottish Cup run.
Yeah, that's it. I know, right, Ross. I'm gonna assume that I share the same thoughts as Kieran. I'll be stunned if this game goes ahead at the weekend, if it is still these same temperatures. But let's talk about it like it is going ahead. How are you expecting Clement to treat this? Are you expecting quite a strong lineup? Or are you expecting some of the kids? I say some of the kids, some of the B team, I should say. Expecting some of them to come in for a game like this against Dumbarton, who are in League Two.
Well, I hope it goes ahead because I'm lucky enough to have a ticket for this one, so I will definitely be travelling down to Dumbarton. Well, I'm hoping I am anyway. I think
Willy
Clement
Wonka and the Chocolate Factory getting a bloody ticket for that one, man.
Yeah, I've been lucky for that one. I think Clement will go really strong here, actually, just because it's the first game back. I think it's Dumbarton, it's away from home, and it's not going to be the best conditions, but I think he'll go with a really strong team. I expect to see the vast majority of the what you would expect to be a starting Rangers 11 out there. I think he'll take a lot of youth on the bench to hopefully give them an opportunity, but I think it will be one of those games where it's tick the box and move on. I'm from down that way, so I know a few Dumbarton fans, and I don't think they've been great this season, and I'm saying that as if I should be rating them in terms of above where they are, right? They're a League Two team, fourth in League Two.
You starting a beef with a League Two team, Dumbarton, man?
Maybe, because I know they won't be watching this. So, I think a lot of them are expecting a doing, as they should be when it comes to one of the top level teams coming to their stadium. So, look, it's one of those games. That's the way I'm looking at it, honestly. Just get through it, tick the box, move on. If you can get young players on to give them an opportunity, of course, do it. The question you ask, Ian, this is a trophy. We need to be winning this. It's the minimum every single year for me. The two cup competitions are the minimum what Rangers should be striving for. The league, of course, it should always be the target. You've got two teams going for that, and you always want to come out on top. But the cups, I think, is something we need to start banking them again. We've obviously got such a good history in them, so we'd like to add a wee bit more. We've obviously got the Viaplay Cup this year already, so I'm sure Clement will look at this and really go for it again. So, I'm looking forward to it. I hope it's on because I just want to see Rangers back in competitive action. I'm absolutely finished with these friendlies. I need to but even if it is against Dumbarton, I just need to see Rangers back playing competitive football again.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you. I'm just, even as you said, even if it is Dumbarton, I want to see something that you can just get your teeth into. Look, before I ask you lineups, I'll come to you here. Ali Quinn's put a wee comment in here. McCrory never covered himself in glory last night, which I agree with. I didn't think he was brilliant at a couple of the corners, but it's a friendly. He's not played in a long, long time. But give Butland a break. He took a knock in the fingers and crossed the goalie is sound. What I'll say from that is, do you think that Clement will change the keeper for the cup competition? Because if he ain't going to do it now, I don't know when he will. And there you go. I'll ask you the question: will he keep Butland the goal, or will he put Robbie McCrory in?
I don't think there'll be much rotation at all. I think, considering we've had two friendlies and coming into a cup game we're very expected to win, that it is a good chance to sort of, especially not just the goalkeeper, especially the front three. I think that front three last night is probably what's going to start against Dumbarton, with a view to the front three that's going to start against Hibs. A wee bit of forward planning there, but I know for a fact that Clement is a huge fan of McCrory. But in terms of changing your goalkeeper, having a cup goalkeeper, I'm not really big on it. And if I'm right in saying we didn't change a cup goalkeeper in terms of the League Cup this season, so I don't see why you would do it. I know the early stages of that were obviously Bill, but I don't see why Clement would do it in the Scottish Cup. I'd be surprised, but I don't expect to see very much rotation at all. I wouldn't be surprised to see the same team that started last night start against Dumbarton.
Yeah, I feel the same, Ross. On you go.
I think McCrory will play. I think he'll play. I think he'll go with the cup goalkeeper for this one. So, yeah, no, that completely put me off there as well.
I think that's a mini power cut there. Either that or the Undertaker's about to walk in with it.
I feel like my answer was wrong there when I said McCrory when your lights went. I was like, "Oh, what happened?" I expect McCrory to play this one. I think Kieran made a good point there. I think Clement rates him really highly as a goalkeeper. Of course, he's he's not as good as Jack Butland, which doesn't mean he's not a good goalkeeper, right? So I expect him to play this one. I think this is a good opportunity to get him some minutes, and I think you're still going to have enough to win the game with McCrory and goals.
Yeah, I completely agree. And just before you both go, and we wrap it up, I'll get a wee score prediction from you from that game. And are you going to predict any unusual goal scorers? Because these 4th round ties and cups, I'm expecting like, I don't know, a Balogun or a Raskin or something like that to score. Kieran, what's your score prediction for the weekend?
3-0, unusual goal scorer, Lawrence Shankland hat-trick.
And Ross?
I'm going to go for 4-0, and I'm going to let's get Fabio Silva running. Let's see, he's going to score a double.
Yeah, that's fine. Oh, that'll be good. Yeah, I'd love Silva to get a couple of goals in that game just to see, because he hasn't really scored anything. Well, it's not he hasn't scored so far, and I just like to see him. Hopefully, he's one of these players once he gets the ball rolling, that'll be him. But listen, I just want to say thank you to both my guests. Thank you, Ross, and thank you, Kieran. I believe it will be the viewers will have the pleasure of myself and you, Kieran, at the weekend again to give a wee post-match reaction on Dumbarton and the weekend. I see if Lawrence Shankland did get a hat-trick, but just want to say a couple of wee things. Remember, give us a like, subscribe, follow, wherever you get us, all your social media platforms. Something I want to give a shout out, there was a Player of the Month came out on Spotify, on Apple. That was Jock, Alex and Ben. It was a fantastic show, fantastic chat amongst the three of them. So if you can, go and give that a wee download and a wee listen. But yeah, like I said, everybody, thank you for tuning in, watching. Kieran and I will be back at the weekend, and we'll see you all then.